This is the Against the Clock series, Adobe Illustrator Creative Cloud June 2016 release, the Professional Portfolio series, and this is Project 1. In this project, you're going to work with the basics of creating vector graphics in Illustrator using several of the different drawing tools. You're going to add color and manage various aspects of your artwork. You're going to start by downloading your camping file from the Student Files webpage. Expand the zip file, and you would like to establish a folder to put everything in. This is Works in Project folder. And when you expand that folder, you will find a file that is called Camping. Make sure you extract everything. If you try to open the zip file, it will not open correctly. You do need to expand the zip file to get the proper folder where everything will open correctly. You can also use this folder called Camping to save the files that we're creating in this project. If you have some difficulty with acquiring your resource files, refer back to page 1 in the Interface chapter. So at this point, I'm going to go into Illustrator. I'm going to go File, New, and I am going to call this file Icons. I'm going to select that the type of document is going to be for print rather than custom. We want to have one artboard only, and for size we will select letter. We're going to actually work in points. Points is another form of measurement. It's a standardized form. We are not working at the pixel level. In the future we may, but there are inches, picas, and points, which are the standards for working in print. Picas are a printer's measure, 6 picas to an inch. Points have 12 points to create 1 pica. The pica and point system is a very old, well-established measurement system used by printers. They are very easy to work with, very accurate compared to working in inches, and we will be working throughout the book in both points, picas, and inches. Something that's built into Illustrator is the ability for Illustrator to convert from one form of measurement to another. So we may be working in points and later wish to enter something in inches, and if we do so, Illustrator will be able to immediately convert from one measurement system to another. Next, set all of your bleed values to 0. We are not concerned with a bleed at this point, and we'll learn more about that in another project. If you don't have your advanced options available to you, click the arrow button and expand Advanced. CMYK is the standard colored mode for printing. RGB is the standard mode for digital distribution. We are working with CMYK. Click OK and you'll create your new file. We now have our artboard displayed with a large black line around it, and of course our panels are going to depend on what we are working with. Essentials should be what you have open at this point. If your essentials are changed because of the work that you've done previously, hit Recent Essentials, and you can then collapse your library. We won't be needing that at this point. Your next step is to choose File and Save As. So just find where you have yours, Work in Progress, Camping, and save your file, Icons. You will get the Options dialog box. Well, it is possible that you can save back to what is called a legacy format, in other words, an earlier version. You need to be aware of the fact that not all the tools would be available, and therefore some items that you have created may not appear correctly if you were to save back to an earlier version and try to open it in that format. Many of the new tools are not in the older versions, you would not be able to see the work that you had created correctly. So you need to be aware of that if you save back to an earlier legacy format. You can read through in the chapter about creating compatible PDF files and subset fonts and so on. It's all covered on page 27. You can accept what is up as default and say OK, and your new file has now been created and saved in your folder. I had already discussed about smart guides with you before. We're going to actually be working again with smart guides. We can access the preference dialog box so that we can make sure that our smart guides are being shown. So let's open up preferences out of the control panel. And let's check smart guides. We have color green. You can change the colors if you so desire. Green is the standard, but if that's not a good color for you, you can change that. You can have your alignment guides, which will show when a new or moved object aligns to the center or an edge of an object. You can have object highlighting active, and when you move the mouse over any part of an unselected object, you will be able to see the anchors and the paths. Transform tools will display when you rotate, scale, or shear objects. Anchor and path labels will come up to tell you what is under the cursor. Measurement labels will show distance and angle of movement. Construction guides will appear when you move objects at predefined angles. A number of common angle options are built in, or you can type in up to 6 specific angles. We can leave this at default and just simply click OK. Double check to make sure your smart guides are on by selecting View and the Smart Guides and make sure that there's a check mark next to them. We've already used the rectangle tool, and I think we've also used the rounded rectangles. We're going to draw a rectangle. So remember, go over to your rectangle tool. If you click and hold on the icon, you will get your rounded rectangle tool. Now, we want you to remember that you can either click and drag to create a rectangle. You can click and hold down your Option key, which will let you draw from the center out, which we hadn't discussed before. You can click once and use the dialog box that comes up. The choices are really up to you on which you want to use, or we'll tell you which you want to use in the chapter. There is the default fill and stroke button at the bottom of the tool panel, which is here. Now you can have your tool panel either a single row or a double row. It's really up to you which way you'd rather use yours. Your choice. It doesn't matter. I'll never see which way you're using it. Just depends on how much real estate you want it to take up and what you're more comfortable with using. Let me delete these items. I can just draw a marquee around them and hit delete. And with my rounded rectangle tool again, I am going to click anywhere on the artboard. I have my default fill and stroke, which is white fill with a black outline. And I am going to specify a width and a height. My width is going to be 1.75 inches. Oh wait, we're working in points, aren't we? Well, you know, it doesn't really matter. So we're going to highlight our height field by just pressing the Tab key. We're going to put in, we're making a square of 1.75 inches again. My corner radius is 12 points, and I am going to say OK to that. If I click on my selection tool, which is the solid arrow at the top of the tool panel, I want next to zoom in to 200%. I can use my pop-up menu here. And we're going to look at the selection we have made. The selection tool is used to select an entire object. When the object is selected, we will see the bounding box, which marks the outermost edges of the shapes. The bounding box handles mark the corners. The exact horizontal and vertical center is also marked. If you do not see your bounding box, go to View and Show Bounding Box. Hide bounding box. Mine comes up hide because I have mine shown. But that's where you would find this, is to show your bounding box. And we have already explored live corners in another one of our videos. Click the rounded rectangle tool in the tool panel and hold down the mouse button until the nested tools appear. Choose the rectangle tool from the list of nested tools. Move the cursor to the top right edge of the existing shape. You will see a guideline that will pop up, and if you click and drag down and to the right, you will see a width and a height that will come up. We want to get 126 points, and as you reach that at the bottom, you will see, there we are, you will see the guideline that comes across to join to the bottom of the rectangle we had already drawn. And when this is a perfect square, you will also get this lovely diagonal that will come up and tell you you have a square. Because we are using the rectangle tool instead of the rounded rectangle tool, we aren't going to have those round corners, but the bounding box handles match the actual shape of the rectangle. Using your selection tool, click one of those live corner widgets and drag towards the center of the shape, and when you have a 12-point arc, release, that's 13, let me go back down to 12. You want to drag very slowly. I keep bouncing back and forth on mine. And then release when you reach approximately 12 points. The live corner widget, which we've discussed in a previous video, allows you to manually adjust the corner radius for all the corners of the selected shape. Make sure you read the section on more about working with live corners on the lower half of page 32.